Hi there, and welcome to Peninsula Players Presents. And my guests today, Paul Slade Smith and Erin Grennan. Hi, you guys.
Hello.
Hi, Greg.
How you doing?
Great.
Doing great.
And who's that behind you?
That's George.
This would be George.
Hello,
Bailey.
George.
Yeah, that's him. He's going to be in and out of this, I'm
One
sure.
of our three cats. There's
Oh.
two dogs, too.
Yeah,
Oh,
Arthur,
okay.
Arthur, whom you know Arthur.
yes. He'll be in and
Oh,
out.
okay.
And Millie, who's never been to Peninsula Players, but
Only the animals
George-
that have been
George-
to Peninsula Players can be on.
George has been there.
Yeah,
yes.
oh yeah. He's been there.
Yeah. George has resided in a cabin in
Yes.
the woods in Fish Creek.
So this is the last in our series of interviews that we've been doing during what would have been our 2020 season. And we started on June 16th with Sean Grennan, a playwright, and we're ending with a playwright and another Grennan. And I
Bookends.
credit Paul for coming up with that. And a little bit about Paul and Erin. They've both worked as actors all over Chicago and regionally. Erin has done a whole bunch of stuff with TV and film, and Paul has been on national tours on Broadway and in Australia. So they've been busy people, and they're now located in New York, in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was when I was thinking about this interview, I was trying to remember how we first met.
Mm.
And I think, Erin, I think I met you first when we both did Timon of Athens.
That's
at
when I
the
met you,
Public
yeah.
Place.
I mean, I of course had known who you were before that. You know, you had kind of a name in Chicago, so I kind of knew who you were.
And
But yeah, I
you-
think officially meeting was Timon of Athens, yeah.
Yes, but could you spell my name?
No, I still can't.
And I think, Paul, I believe we first did Much Ado at Chicago Shakes in 98, 99, but
Yes,
we also did A Christmas Carol at the Goodman, right?
that's true. And I think the first time we ever worked in proximity was when Drury Lane South did the Peninsula Players Peninsula Players production of Taking Steps,
Yeah.
Alan Ayckbourn's play, to Drury Lane South, and hired a bunch of people who hadn't been in the cast there as understudies. And
Oh, that's right.
I was hired as your understudy.
That's right. Did you go on?
I did not. There's a
Oh.
whole story. I could spend the whole half hour on the story. No, I did not go on. I'm very happy to say, and because you were
okay.
brilliant. You were brilliant in that play.
Okay. I must admit,
and-
whenever I've understudied, I've never wanted to go on.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, one of the reasons we're here with Paul and Erin is because of their association with Peninsula Players, which has been quite extensive. And according to my figures, Erin has performed with the Players between 2002 and 2015 in 7 seasons,
Yep.
and I counted 14 shows.
Is it really that many? Wow.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was that many. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And Paul has been at the Players between 2007 and 2015, both as a playwright with 2 plays that he wrote, and then he also performed in 6 shows.
Yeah.
And I also noted that the 2 of you at the Players did 4 shows together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I have also acted with you in some of those and
Yeah.
directed. And Erin, when you came up in 2002,
Mhm.
all 3 of us knew each other already.
Yeah.
And your first season there was interesting one.
It was a varied one. It was really fun. Oh wait,
I
look,
have the poster.
we have a
Greg.
prop. This is my very first season.
This hangs
Oh,
on
there you
the
go.
office wall.
Ooh.
And you were in Last Night of Ballyhoo,
Yeah.
Yes.
Shady Business,
Shady Business.
and The Foreigner.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that was an amazing season.
Mhm.
That was to this day, it's one of my favorites there, because I think everything was very new and I didn't know how it was going to be. And I was so wonderfully embracing when I got there. Like, you know, when you're the new kid, it's like, oh, I hope people like me, you know,
Yeah.
but everyone was so wonderful and so ready to like just do really good work together and have fun. And I got to play such fun roles that season too.
And that was, yeah, 3 very different shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Ballyhoo with you. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it was wonderful.
Beautiful.
And then actually, Paul, your first year was in 2007, and it was as a playwright.
Yep. Yep.
Because we did Unnecessary Farce, the first play you've written, which I directed, which is really, really fun. If you all ever get a chance to see it, it's great. And you came up and were in rehearsals with us.
Yes, yeah, which was great. I was on tour at the time with Wicked, I think, and used my week's vacation to come and be with you guys. I think in maybe your second week, third week of rehearsal. I don't remember when it was.
Mm-hmm.
Which was an amazing time. I mean, and of course you were so generous with, you know, I loved having you as the director, and we had talked about, you know, which I was surprised and didn't know, but certainly you don't do this with all your playwrights because many of them are dead, you know, or if you don't happen to, you know, have their cell phone numbers, but you called me up and said, hey, I'm thinking of, you know, the cast for this, or I think you actually started with, you know, are there actors that you can see in these roles, which was so amazingly generous to me. So I knew the whole cast, whether they were people that I knew personally or that you know, introduced me to. I knew their work before I came, and that was an amazing experience. And Erin was in that show, and that was a great time. Yeah.
And you were wonderful because I've worked with new playwrights or new plays before with the playwright around, and oftentimes it can be a very trying experience when they don't want to change a period or a the or something.
Right.
And what you were great because you listened to us, often saying some stupid things, but you listened.
Never stupid.
And you went away and thought about stuff and came back with some new stuff, and it was very fun.
Yeah, it was the second production of the play, but the script was finished during the rehearsal period at Peninsula Players.
Yeah.
You had specifically some ideas about the ending, I remember, but we made changes that went into the permanent script because they were great changes.
Yeah.
I think because I'm an actor first, or was an actor first for many years before I ever wrote Unnecessary Farce, the first play, I certainly had the experience, well, like you, of working with new plays and working with new playwrights. And I, as an actor, you know, in a new show, always just, let's keep going till we get it right. That's, you know, whether I'm saying that or just thinking it or willing it to be, let's keep going till we get it right. And so as a playwright, that's always my inclination too. Like, what are the ideas in the room? Let's keep going till we get it right. And
so Unnecessary Farce was your first play.
Yep. And
what prompted you to even write one?
So here's the poster.
Let's refer to the chart.
Shady Business, which Erin was in, and she had what an amazing cast.
Oh my God,
that
such
you
a great
assembled.
cast.
Now, who directed Shady Business? Great director, Amy McKenzie, at the Old Theater, and Erin had an experience that, and that whole cast had an experience that I had myself, of being in a show and in a farce specifically, when you're in rehearsals and thinking, is this funny? Are we, you know, and then getting in front of an audience and it just played like absolute gangbusters. And coming to see, the whole summer that Erin was doing that season, I think I was doing a play at Apple Tree Playhouse in the northern end of the Chicago suburbs. And every weekend I would drive up and, you know, and hang out with Erin in her cabin and see, I guess I got to see the Tuesday night performances.
Yeah.
So seeing Shady Business and hearing that whole experience and watching that play, I thought, I want to write a farce to play at this theater. You know, that was the thought. Like, I want I want to create this experience. Shady Business is 7 characters. Unnecessary Farce is 7 characters. You know, I was like, I want to take this cast, you know, was sort of the thought, and put them, and I want to create my own scenario, and also create a fun experience for the audience and a fun experience every night. And also, I thought, you know, I know that but I thought, well, one thing I wanted maybe to top this experience is have a play that the actors are having fun in the rehearsal room as well. So that's what I set out to do.
And the other wonderful thing I think is that it's not a British farce; it's an American farce, very American, and very well thought through.
Oh, thanks.
So, while you were talking, I was wondering, how long have you guys been married?
October 8th will be 19 years.
And
wow. We've been together.
Yeah,
we've been together 21 years.
We got married the fall before Erin's first show, first season with you.
Right before I went up there.
Yeah. So that was our first time apart, I think, as a married couple.
Oh, sorry.
No, it was a harbinger of tours and regional theater
things to come, which I do want to talk about in a sec.
Yeah.
And so some of the other shows you did together besides Unnecessary Farce were at the Players was Murder on the Nile.
Yeah.
Both in. The Nerd.
Yeah.
The Games Afoot.
Yeah.
Which I was in there with you.
Yeah.
I think, Paul, was it you and I that had to carry a dead body?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, and I directed both of you on Sunday in the Park with George, the musical. I love that show.
Yes.
And then again, we worked together on your play, The Outsider, which was at the time when we did it, A Real Lulu, which both Erin and I were in. And and Erin, at the Players, you yourself have been involved with, I believe this is right, 3 world premieres, which was Making God Laugh by your brother, Sean Grennan.
My brother, yes.
The Tin Woman, also by Sean. And what was then A Real Lulu.
Yeah.
And I love all of those shows.
Yeah.
I just have to say, like, I can't believe my luck. I mean, yeah, I'm related to these people, but like they didn't have to give me these parts. And I feel like so lucky to have originated roles in those shows in particular, because they're all so special in their own way, you know, and they have turned into some of my favorite memories on stage, you know, and when with fellow actors and everything. But they're just, it's not that many actors that can like look back and go, yeah, I got to originate these things, and they're all just so incredibly special. And you know, there's lots of things we've originated or worked on or workshopped that just didn't work out or whatever, but these were all like these little shining things, and I feel very, very fortunate to have been part of those.
Yes, and really, really fun in all different ways.
Yeah,
and you were terrific in all of them.
Oh.
And Paul, with A Real Lulu, which became The Outsider.
Yeah.
Where it's very different from Unnecessary Farce in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both comedies, but how did that engender?
I know I was searching for, I specifically wanted to write something that was more than just a farce when I set out to write The Outsider. Because my experience, every Unnecessary Farce production I was connected with, and certainly ones where I wasn't connected with them, but the artistic directors would write me, and you know, we'd correspond. Like, everyone always had a great time doing the play, and I'm blessed to say it's been you know, like hugely successful with audiences. But I think it is like champagne bubbles, and it kind of dissipates by the time you make it home, you know. And I wanted to write a play that made people laugh just as much, but also that said something, you know, that I wanted, which is like a silly thing to start out with just with that. But I think I maybe had that as sort of a background idea when I then happened upon, I was reading an article about a political campaign, and the moment at which members of the campaign thought of their candidate, oh, wait, I don't think this person's up for the job. And I thought, oh, I think that germ of an idea, that moment, is, I can take that and make that a moment that starts the genesis of a plot of a play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was great because again, you were in the rehearsal room with
Yeah,
us, I think the whole time.
yeah.
And Tom Mula directed that show, and Aaron and I were both in it, and it was really great because you and Tom allowed the actors to have give some feedback about
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually,
You weren't
I'll
there.
correct myself. I Most of it was over the phone. I was able to come in
Oh,
just your first production week. I was able to come
okay.
in. By the
Yeah.
time I came in, you guys were like your first night on stage, I think.
Oh,
But I
okay.
had like I was on speakerphone, like listening to the read through and communicating with Tom during the rehearsal
Yeah, they were
process.
talking a lot through that process. I remember.
It was a like what an amazing year that was 2015. I was making my debut as an actor in a Broadway show, Finding Neverland, which was I think that was the week leading up to the Tonys or something. Don't you get like your first show of the season? Was it?
Yes,
It's in June.
it was the first show.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have a tradition of like at the Sunday of the first week, you all watched the Tony Awards, and like I had to be in New York at that time because Finding Neverland was performing at the Tonys, so which
Yes.
was all it was all incredible. Just even during the rehearsals and previews and the early performances of Finding Neverland, I was finishing the play for you guys. We had done a reading. We came between you saying, yes, I want to do the play, and you guys starting rehearsal. We had done a reading at Victory Gardens Theater, which I came back for. And then based on that, I thought, oh, there's more rewrites to do. And so there are photos that exist in Finding Neverland, which is the story of the creation of Peter Pan. I played the actor who plays Nana the dog in Peter Pan, and there are photos of me in my dog costume with a yellow legal pad,
Right.
like in the wings, finishing A Real Lulu.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's the life.
Well, I think it's one of the things I love about theater. It's always an adventure in so many
Yeah.
ways.
Absolutely.
And and Aaron, that was a great part for you.
Oh my God. I think it's probably one of the best times I've ever had on stage, and sharing it with you was just such a delight to have you as the partner who was just that you had such kindness toward me, and yet there was always that feeling of like, oh, she's crazy, but I'm going to be as sweet as possible to her. But it was just such a joy. I mean, my goodness, like to play a part, and I've played a lot of parts where the woman is like unstable or there's something wrong or she's off, but it's always had sort of there's like a darkness to it, or there's an edge to it. And with her, she's 100% joy and happiness, and everything's positive, and what could possibly go wrong. And my goodness, what a delight to play that, where that's literally what she is. She's just, everything's great, and so that was a fun summer for me because it was just happy.
Here's a connection, Greg, a Peninsula Players connection, which I swear was 100% not in the front of my brain. But Erin's first performance at Peninsula Players last night at Ballyhoo, she played
Lala.
Lala.
Oh.
She played Lulu in A Real Lulu.
I need to go through all the vowels before I'm done there. Just say that.
Lolo is going to be a very sad character.
Lolo is not good.
Very sad. Low.
Thank you for taking us on that circle. Also.
But
now,
I want to say, like, you being in that play and Erin being in that play, what a great treat it is for a playwright to write for actors that he knows and has worked with.
mm-hmm.
He wrote Ned with you in mind.
Absolutely,
100%.
yeah. The character that you played was suddenly, I totally had you in mind. The character that Erin played, obviously, I had her in mind.
Yeah.
And others in that cast, it's like, and what a great,
and Sean Fortunato.
yeah,
Absolutely.
what a great opportunity that is to envision a character, think, oh, I know who could play this, and now I'm gonna use what I know of them to help me figure out this character and fill it out. And then we get into rehearsals and they actually do fill it out. You all had thoughts and ideas. Oh, I don't feel I wouldn't, let's add this. And,
yeah. It was nice, I think, for both Erin and I to be so connected to the material that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. Now, and so you've had quite a history at the Players, but I would also like you've gone on to some other things which you've alluded to already, and I know that Paul, you did some national tours. I think the first one was Phantom of the Opera. Is that
Phantom of
right?
the Opera. Yep, yep.
And how long did you do that?
3 years on tour with Phantom. Yeah.
And then you did Wicked, the
Yep.
national tour of Wicked after that. And how long did you do that?
7 years. No, it was only 2 years with Phantom of the Opera. 2 years with Phantom, and then 7 years with Wicked, for a total of 9 years, with one day off in between. I think I left the Phantom tour in Boston on a Saturday and started rehearsals for Wicked.
He was an unemployed bum for 24 hours.
Although there was a drive from Boston to New York in between.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did those come in terms of your relationship and dealing with that touring?
Yeah. Well, like I say, no, not only because it's interview, but just everything in our life revolves around Peninsula Players. So her first summer with you guys was our first time apart, and then it was about a year later. It was 2003, spring of 2003, that I headed off on the road with Phantom, and neither of us had ever imagined doing that kind of thing. Period. Let alone.
And yeah, I mean, I will say, like, when we got together, even before we got married, we knew the life. We knew that it takes you different places. I just don't know that we knew the extent to which that was going to happen. Yeah. But yeah.
And when we were dating, when we got engaged, we were
both out of town working
at a regional theater together.
Yeah.
So it was sort of already part of the narrative.
Yeah.
And what is it that and I think, Erin, you traveled a lot to visit him wherever he might be.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. He'd give me his itinerary for like the next 6 months, and I go, okay, I'm gonna skip that town, skip that town. Oh, I'll see you in New Orleans. Awesome. Skip that town. I got to pick and choose. It was nice, and I got to see places I might not have ever visited. And fell in love with a whole bunch of cities along the way. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Even they went to Canada too, and that was awesome. So.
And if she'd be staying with me, I'd be like, oh, I have to get a nice apartment here. She's not coming to LA, so I'll just stay in this ant-infested, brothel.
Or sleep in the car.
Yeah. Save a lot of money on per diem.
While I was thinking about this interview today, I just remembered that your audition for Wicked for the national tour, because I was called in to audition also.
Yeah.
And I went in and did my thing.
Yeah.
I was okay, but I think my memory is that I walked out and I saw you there.
Yeah.
And we had worked together already.
Right.
And as soon as I saw you, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's perfect for this role. and lo and behold, it worked out. So
yeah. Well, and neither of us got the job that day. I got the job at the understudy. Speaking of, never wanting to go on when you're an understudy. But yes, that was the job I got. And then sometime later, I graduated up to actually playing the role on the tour. Yeah.
And then then you're in New York now.
Yeah.
So tell me about that transition to there, because it involves some more shows too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of figuring out what to do. Like when he got off tour, you did some stuff back in Chicago again, and then you decided to come to New York. I was staying in Chicago because we just didn't know. We didn't know which city we wanted to live in. So I thought, I'm just going to stay here until we know what happens with him. And so he went, and you eventually got into a workshop of
Finding Neverland.
Worship of Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that wound up not going past a certain place. But then you got Finding Neverland, and then you got what was the next thing you got? Was that Charlie?
Charlie, yeah.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then My Fair Lady, and like we were sort of watching the progression of things happening for him. And I finally in 2016 went, okay, yeah, I think things are going fine. So I eventually picked up and joined him then. But it was just sort of we were not in our 20s just going to New York going, let's see what happens. And I just said, I want to know that things are like going to be solid if we pick up, because it's not cheap to live here. It is beginning again in my 40s, you know, and to not come with any connections. I just wanted to know that things were going to be good, and they were. They turned out to be great.
And so. I had with the first show, Finding Neverland, I purposely did not rent an apartment, did not sign a lease, because I thought, if I sign a year lease, this show will close in 3 weeks. And it'll be my fault. So I subletted apartments. Actually, the very first, no one cares about this. No one watching this cares about this. But my first housing in New York for Finding Neverland was, I had toured so much and I had a Marriott, hotels reward system or whatever. And I got so many points with the Marriott rewards that for the first month I stayed in New York for free at a Marriott hotel.
Yeah. Just
traded in my points so that I could,
got to make it work somehow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great. I mean, being in New York and having a job is fantastic for all the reasons you said.
Yeah.
So, and I know that it was a challenge, Erin, for you, because it was starting anywhere in a new place is always a big hurdle.
Yeah.
But I think, how are you feeling now?
I feel good. It's interesting. I watched the most recent interview that I watched was Joel Hatch's, and I love Joel. And he actually gave me wonderful advice when I moved here. He said, if you're not coming with a show, if you're not coming connected to something, you got to give it about 5 to 8 years. And I was like, oh my God, oh, sure. I hope I make it to 5 to 8 years. And, but he was absolutely right about it, because it's been about we're going into the 4 to 5 year mark. And it's been around this time, pre-pandemic happening, that things really started to click in for me. I got good representation, and work started picking up like crazy. And I've been really happy. I've always known, when he made the move, that's one of the reasons I supported this happening, because I felt like Paul could really do well here. What he brings to the table and what he has, I'm like, yeah, I could see him doing really well. I wasn't so sure about me, because I don't do musical theater and all that, and so having to start from scratch was a challenge. My first year and a half, 2 years, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But then it started to click in. And then once I got the representation that I needed, I was like, yes, okay, now I'm getting in some doors that I wasn't getting into before. And they were really starting to click. And, the timing being what it is, things, I lost a job because of pandemic, everything closing. And, but I feel like it was the right move. Yeah. I mean, when all of this lifts and we are back into our lives again, I feel just as confident that this was the right move to make. I mean, I miss Chicago, I miss home, I miss my friends, but I think this feels right to me. This feels like we've made a home here and a life here.
And I think you have a really nice place with you're lucky enough to have a backyard.
We lucked out. Yeah, we're at a garden unit here, and so we have 2 floors of living space and a full backyard that's just ours. And I mean, this doesn't happen in New York. It doesn't happen in Chicago hardly. And so we grabbed it as soon as it became available. And the dogs are in heaven. I'm in heaven, because you can just open the door and go, be free. So it's been nice.
And of course, now you're together, but Paul, you had come back from Australia.
Yeah.
When this all happened.
Yeah, I was doing I did Charlie and Chocolate Factory on Broadway. I played Grandpa George, the other grandpa stuck in bed, not Grandpa Joe, and also had the privilege of understudying Willy Wonka. And when the same production team brought the show to Australia, I got a call completely out of the blue. Yeah. Would you be interested in playing Willy Wonka in Australia? And I said to Erin, when I got the call, I was like, well, it's a list I'm on. I mean, they're only asking, are you interested? I was like, I don't know how long the list is. I don't know where I am on the list, but of course I'm interested. So I'll say yes. And then 3 hours later, okay, you're being made an offer on Monday.
It wasn't even 3 hours. It was an hour later, he got the phone call from his agent. It's an offer.
Wow.
So what an amazing, incredible, I mean, who would turn down either Willy Wonka or Australia, let alone both? It was an amazing opportunity. And I was over there from November of 2018 until till COVID hit the world.
Yeah.
And shortly after, basically the same week that theater all shut down here in the US, theater shut down there, they were sort of being more preemptive about it. They weren't anywhere near, where we were at that point. But anyway, so everything was shut down, and I came home. Yeah.
This is the longest amount of time I think we've ever spent together as a married couple.
Right.
I'm not even kidding.
Thanks
I think
to the
it's
pandemic.
actually true. This is the longest amount of time we've spent under the same
We're
roof.
having all our dinners together.
Wow.
It's going really well.
And Erin, you were able to get out to Australia too, right?
Yeah, I got out there twice, and I stayed for almost a month both times, because it's one of those trips that you kind of can't go and spend a week. You're spending a week getting over jet lag. So, it's just knowing that he was going to be gone that long, we decided to make long chunks of time that I would go. And oh my God, I mean, talk about an experience we never would have had had this tour not come up. I don't know that we ever would have made it to Australia. And in some ways now it kind of feels like a second home. Like the people there are so amazing and so lovely. The people that you worked with, a good friend of mine lives there, and seeing the places that we did. And I mean, I'm going to be the wife for a second, but seeing him play a role that, like, talk about like the perfect match of actor to role. It's like, that is perfect. And he excelled. And the only regret is that like so many people here wouldn't be able to see it, but my goodness, it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen him do, and I'm kind of a fan. So,
and I think you got honored with an award nomination for
I
that.
did, which was really amazing. I did when the award. I knew the award nominations were coming out, and boy, working in New York and being on Broadway has made me hyper aware of awards in a way that I'm glad in Chicago I wasn't. But the nominations came out. We got the most nominations of any musical that year. It was for direction and choreography, and I was nominated in Grandpa Joe, Tony Sheldon, who was amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to think. Like, is this a big deal? Is this and I came in to work at the matinee the next day, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, we got," and the fact that it was not an Australian born, it was this New York thing that came over. It was New York,
and that you're not Australian.
New York creatives, but of course the rest of the cast was all Australian. But it was just wonderful that the country embraced us, and we had that honor. It was great.
Yeah,
I'm very proud.
I know, Erin, you said that you thought it was a perfect blend of actor and role with Paul playing Willy Wonka. It just made me think of when we did Chicago at the Players, which I directed.
There's another one.
You sang Mr. Cellophane, which was the husband, and I just loved what you did in that. That was so great.
Thank you.
Could I tell a story really quickly? Because I was there that summer not doing the show. I had that show off between two other shows, and Kimberly Senior was directing Murder on the Nile next, I believe. And so she's up in her cabin and I'm up in mine. And I had seen the production like 3 times at that point. But I'd be up there working on my lines and she'd be up there working on something else. And when we can hear the show. And so when that number was coming up, we didn't even talk to each other. We would just both leave our cabins and run down. And we'd both be like at the back of the theater just watching Mr. Cellophane, and then we'd run back up again. It became like a nightly thing that Kimberly and I would just see each other at the cabins and run down the hill and watch. It was pretty fun.
It was an amazing role. It was an amazing production.
Well,
they all are.
I've been very, very happy you've been part of the fabric at Peninsula Players, and it's always great, having you there. And I'm also happy now that you're having time together.
Yeah, it's been really great. I mean, it turns out we like each other, so.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. But for what, I just want to say, like, while we can, that like the times that we've had at Peninsula Players, despite everything else that we're doing and have done, like, remain some of our favorite times. And like, it's just such a wonderful combination of the work that we get to do, the parts that we get to play, the environment that we're in, the embrace of the town and of the audiences, and the fact that you assemble actors who can and enjoy and look forward to being together 24/7. That is not easy to combine that and have all of that work. And you are so good at that. And it's like, that's all of that combined. It's like, how could this not be among like your favorite experiences that you've had? And so we just feel really, really lucky to be in that fabric. So thank you.
The part of Peninsula Players that is all of us living together, eating all our meals together, seeing each other all the time, hanging out after the show together, is the part that is sadly missing from a lot of theater. I would say that actually tour was a positive thing in that way, because you're all in Dayton, Ohio. Nobody knows anybody in Dayton, Ohio, so you hang out together.
Dayton, Ohio is great.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Dayton, Ohio. Love Dayton, Ohio. Anyway, sorry.
Well, but that you're only there for that reason, because you all know each other. Yeah. But I always miss the Peninsula Players experience. If I have any other experience that's any degree away from that, I miss the togetherness. And the fact that both of my plays, one the world premiere, one the second production, happened there, it makes so much sense, because theater is something you create together. And Peninsula Players is all about everybody comes up from all these disparate places, you all gather in a small space, and you create something together, and then you create something else together, and then you create something else together, and it's magical.
It is magical, and I know that sounds like such a corny thing to say, but I think theater has the potential to be magic, and if you have all the elements come together, that is just a place where magic is supposed to happen. I mean, it's just, there's no way you can't. I mean, you'd have to really be opposed to making magic, or being or being joyful, or loving what you do.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for being part of that, and thank you for being with us here today.
Yeah.
Thank you
both. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being with us as we traversed our 2020 season online with Peninsula Players Presents. It's been a series of 18 interviews that's been very fun to do, covering the 18 weeks of our 2020 season. And while we would much rather do this in person, and we miss seeing all of you, we hope that these interviews at least rekindled in you memories of live Peninsula Players experiences you have had, and gave you a chance to catch up with some of our alumni, hear a few Peninsula Players stories, and maybe even help you learn a little bit more about how we put on our shows for you. If you missed any of the interviews, you can still catch them on our website, Peninsula Players Presents, and I hope you will also help us by thinking of us with our annual fund, especially this year. Now, Peninsula Players Presents will continue next week, when we will begin Peninsula Players Presents History Project, where I will be interviewing Audra Backery-Boyle, our business manager, historian, and archivist, and we will go through the 85-year history of Peninsula Players Theater decade by decade. We already did one interview where we covered the founding of the theater in 1935 up to its opening at our current location in 37, which you can still catch. And next week, we will start right there at 1937 and go to 38, 39, up to 1940, which was jam-packed few years, full of glamour and Hollywood, and very, very fun. They've been great to do as we uncover a lot of the history of the players, and I hope you'll join us as we go through that journey, okay? See you there.